Hello, my name is Maggie Dufresne, and today we're going to be trying something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a step-by-step digital paint-along, if you will. I had this idea for creating this cute cup of hot chocolate, as I've been drinking a lot of it lately. So let's get started. So we're going to be using a square format for this picture. You can choose whatever size canvas you prefer. We're going to start by using the selection tool and creating a large oval area on the canvas. This is going to be the middle of the cup where the cocoa is. So we're going to switch over to the marker tool, and then we're going to pick a light brown color. I already picked the kind of color I want, and we're going to start filling in that area. All right, what we're going to do next is create a new layer, and then we're going to invert our selected area. This way we're only coloring around that central color because we want to start to shape the cup. For this image, I thought a green cup would be cute. So we're just going to outline around it and then kind of bring the cup down. I'm just trying to work out some of the edges, make them a little bit more even. We're just going to fill the whole space in because this is just our base layer, just the base color that we'll be adding on to. Just adding in some final little touches, rounding out the edge of the cup. And there we go, much happier with that shape. We're going to add the handle to our mug next. So we're going to outline the shape of it and then fill in the area. So we're doing the top first in that same base green color. And then we're going to do the bottom half of the handle, making like a little slanted line and then filling it in. Is deselect our selected area, and then we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to clip that layer to the one below it. So that's going to only allow us to color in the area that there's already color on. So we've put this new layer just above where our base layer of cocoa is. And we're going to select a slightly darker color. I've also lowered the opacity on the marker because we don't want to be overwhelming, but just like a nice little shadow. So we're going to start with like a little swirl in the middle of the cup, and we're also going to add some shadows on the edge. I really like working with color because it's such a great opportunity to just play and add some different things. So working with that same color, and then I decided I didn't really like how it looked on the edge, so I lightened it back to that base color, and now I'm gonna add in another color to continue on with the swirl to make it pop a little bit more. That one was too late. There we go. This is much better. Okay, that's a chance to play. We're just kind of making marks here, and then in a moment we are going to blend it together. I think there would be a little bit of a reflection from the cup onto the cocoa, so I'm adding an even lighter area to it, and then bringing that color around and into the center. So we're going to start to blend the colors together. So we're going to select the blending tool. You can adjust how wide the area is, how far you're dragging the colors. So I'm just changing that a little bit. And we're going to kind of play around with it, just blending some of those colors. We're going to play around with making some areas more blended where the colors aren't going to have as much distinction, and having a few more distinct areas. I like how that's coming along. What we're going to do next is go back to the marker tool, and like I said, we're going to play around with having more blended areas and areas that aren't blended as well. So I'm lightening the reflection from the cup. We're going to go back and forth between those two tools, the marker and the blending tool, for a moment, and I'm smoothing out the edges where I think it would look a little more blended and less distinct, but leaving that harder line on the top where the edge of the cup would be reflected. Then we're gonna come back into the rest of the cocoa and smooth out those edges, blend it a little bit better. I think it's looking a little bit flat. It's not as warm as I would like it, so we're going to select a warmer color and add in a little bit of that. Add some warmth to our image. No, I didn't really like that one. Let's see. That looks a little bit better to me. So we're gonna add this in some different spots. Adding a little bit more darkness to the shadows just to add some more depth because it looks kind of flat. Playing around again with the opacity to get some varying shades, that way it's not boom, you know, here's a dark spot on the cup. That doesn't make sense. But adding in some like more orangey brown, some redder brown, some just different shades to give it a little bit more vibrancy. So we're just kind of scribbling around, and then again we're going to take that blending tool and smooth out those edges, so that way the transitions between the colors aren't harsh. Now I do really want to keep that swirl bit that we had initially. I thought it was kind of cute, so we're going to be using our blending tool in a circular motion to try to keep some of that shape. And as we get close to that edge that we created earlier, we're going to pull the colors down a little bit away from that more defined area, and then kind of blend it into the shadows. But we're going to do that so that way we don't lose that nice little reflective area. We're going to go back in and add a little bit more depth to that shadow, as well as like a mid-tone, so a dark brown and then a lighter color, and then we're going to blend that out. Alright, we're going to go back and select the marker tool and select a lighter brown color. Again, just to add a little bit of a highlight on top of the cocoa, and then we're going to go back to the blending tool and blend that out. Alright, so that's looking good. So what we're going to do next is to create a new layer. We are not clipping this one because we want it to be independent of the other ones. We are going to put that as our topmost layer because it's going to sit above the colors of the cup. What we're going to be doing is adding in some little details. We're going to be adding in little bubbles that appear around the edge of a cup of cocoa. So we're using a much smaller brush on our marker, and we're just going to start drawing little circles. And you can use the eyedropper tool to match the color of the line to what's below it. So we're using one of the colors that we selected, and we're just going to start to draw some little circles, and as we move along we will be using that tool. This part might seem a little bit tedious, but I find it really calming to just draw this little repetitive circle, and going in different shapes. They don't have to all be the same. Some bigger, some smaller. Just filling around the edge. Now, I found this process calming to do, and I really enjoy creating all the different sizes for the circles, but for the sake of the video, I am going to speed it up. Otherwise, you're going to watch me draw tiny circles for many minutes. Alright, that's looking really good. So what we're going to do next is to select a darker color, and this is going to be a shadow inside of the bubbles. It's just a nice little detail that's going to make them look a little bit more realistic. So we're again going to have like a really small brush, and select a really light opacity. Here I'm kind of playing around with putting some dark circles on top of the cocoa to see how that looks, if it looks like bubbles. I'm going to leave them for a second, but I'm not liking those as much. So we'll see if I end up leaving them. But we're just gonna go around, and especially on the bigger bubbles, you don't have to do it on all of the tiny bubbles, but just adding a little bit of shadow. So on the ones on the left side, we want the shadow to be towards the right, and on the bubbles on the right side, as we make our way around, we're going to switch that shadow over to be on the left edge of the bubble. All right, we're gonna switch over to a light color. I picked a very, very light blue. Again, we're gonna have the opacity way down because we don't want this to be like, whoa, blinding light, but just a little bit of a shine on the bubbles. It's just gonna be a nice little detail for them. You can, again, just do the bigger bubbles or like I did and go through and just put a little tiny dot or like a little line on the smaller ones. It'll just help to make them look a little bit more realistic. All right, that's looking good. So what we're gonna do next is create a new layer and add it above the layer with the green cup. And we're going to clip this new layer to the one below it. We're going to start adding some shadows. We're going to start to shape the cup. So again, I'm using the marker tool at a low opacity, and I'm going to start to color in the front of the cup to create, again, some shadows. We're not going to work on the handle at all right now. We're going to do that on a separate layer. So we're just gonna bring that dark color around. Oop, didn't like how that looked. There we go, much better. Bringing it all the way down. And let's see. We're gonna add some different values. Can't quite see the difference there. So gonna add some marks. Now the way cups look, we'll see shadows and lights going up and down with things that are reflected as well as rounded around the cup. So we're going to be playing with some different shades of green, some different lights and shadows to create that kind of effect. All right, that's looking good. So since we've already changed the opacity, we're going back to that first color that we selected, and we're going to make some of those same vertical strokes with the brush, especially towards the sides of it. It's where we really want to have that up and down. And then in the middle, we'll again do some of that rounded shape following along the cup. So we're just playing around with it, seeing what we like, what we don't like. There we go. So we're adding in another darker color. You can see we're really trying to get some of those shadows. There, that's better. So just playing around with some of those colors. Like I said, and towards the middle of the cup, we're going to have more of that rounded look, whereas on the sides, we're going to do more up and down strokes with our brush. All right, we're gonna take the blending tool and start to blend it together. There we go. This will help to even out those tones. Because right now it looks kind of silly. But I promise we will get there. Alright, while we're using the blending tool, we're going to try to follow some of the same directions as the marks we were making with the marker tool to help preserve some of that shape that we were creating. It's going to help it to look a little more realistic. So towards the middle of the cup, we're going to make those rounded horizontal strokes, while towards the sides, we're going to do more up and down vertical strokes with the blending tool. It's looking pretty good, but I want to add in a little bit of that lighter color and put in a few more shadows to increase the contrast. Right now it's not looking like I want it to. There we go. That looks better. Alright, that looks good. So we're going to create a new layer and again put it above the base green color that we created, and we're going to be clipping this layer to that as well. We're going to select the darker of the green colors to start, and then that middle tone as a transition color, and then towards the back of the handle we're going to go back to the darker green to start coloring in the shadow created on the inside of the handle. And let's see, where do I want it? There we go. So we've increased the opacity to make it a little bit darker towards the edge there, and then we're gonna go back and use that middle green color to help transition back to the light green that we used for the base. I'm gonna add a little bit more of a shadow along that bottom edge and the side and towards the back. There we go. Bring it to the cup. And then we're going to get a much lighter green. Let's see. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And this is to create a little bit of a highlight. So we're going to put one down here where the light would be reflected, And we'll put one up on the top as well in a moment. But we're gonna use that blending tool to smooth out those colors. Oh, I went a little over. There we go. And pick up the blending tool again, and again, we're just gonna start blending those colors. Some nice smooth transitions. You know what? Like a slightly bluer green color in the middle there. Let's see. How does that look? There we go. All right, we're gonna go back to blending. That looks nice. So we're pushing and pulling the colors, starting in one and then in the other, to really even them out. And we're gonna come back to that whiter color. Not quite white. I'm gonna make it a smaller brush size than I have been. I want some finer details. So this one we're not going to blend out in the same way. There we go. So we're adding some to the top edge of the handle and then along the bottom edge of the handle as well. Didn't like how that looked. Let's try again. Just making some different sized lines. And we're gonna blend just a little bit. Here we go. Just gonna play around with it for a second. Just kind of scribbling over it. And then cleaning up the edges where we were just drawing. Nice job. Alrighty, we're gonna create another new layer and again clip that to the green base color of the mug, and I have selected a very light blue, and we're going to start to create the inside of our cup. So we're just gonna lay down where we want that to be. So just creating that edge, coloring around the inside of the cup, giving it a little bit of a white lip. I can see I'm gonna have to go back to that other layer and clean that up, but we'll worry about that in a minute. Just going nice and slow, doing small brush strokes. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just gonna even out that edge. There we go, looks good. Alright, we're gonna come back and erase a little bit. There we go. Just to clean up that edge so that way we can see what we're working on the layer we're on and what's from something else. There we go. Now we're gonna go around the other side and second. Much better. All right, now we're going to come back to the layer we were just on with that light blue color. And, oh, sorry, I forgot what layer is what. Note to future self. Name your layers. All right, so what we're going to do next is to select a very light brown color, and we're going to start to, no, let's undo that. Oh, I got lost in the layers again. Gonna increase the opacity a little to see it a little bit more as brown and less as green. There we go. So this is going to be a reflection of the cocoa color on the cup. So we're going to add a little bit of that brown, and then I'm going to add a little bit of a very light dark green color around the sides of the cup to create a shadow. And I picked that color because I think it's going to tie in well with the green of the cup that we've already got going on. So we've got our dark green, the lighter color, the brown, and now we're again going to take that blending tool and start to blend those colors together. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a harder edge along the top. There we go, blending that together so it's a nice even transition between them. And that last little area looks good. So we're going to come in with the eraser tool and clean up the top lip of the cup. That's going to give it a more defined edge. This wouldn't be shaded the same way the inside of the cup is. And we're going to, here we go, select again a very light blue. And I'm going to change it to a smaller brush. And we're going to add some highlights along the top edge. So I'm going to put some towards the back, along the side here. Then we're going to come down towards the front of the cup, the part closest to us. And I'm going to add some light there and then take the blending tool and create a lighter area, just blending it into the color that we've got. So I think it'll make the front of that pop a little bit more. So I'm going to switch back and forth between the marker, just adding a little bit of that very light color and then blending it. Just again, give it a little bit more of a distinction. That's looking good. We're going to bring that light color all the way around the top of the cup and then again use that blending tool to even out the tones. Come back in and re-add those highlights. one in the back, and then that one on the side we did before. There we go. All right, we're gonna create another new layer, and this we're gonna put underneath all of the previous layers because we're gonna add a background. So we're gonna use a light blue color, just playing around with the opacity to see what I like. And we're gonna fill in the whole space with this color. Sorry, it's lagging a little, that's okay. Just fill in the whole area in with this pretty blue. And then we're going to pick a darker blue color and lower the opacity. Oh, I lowered it too much. Oh, ended everything. Hold on. Redo. There we go. Sorry about that. So let's up the opacity a little, and we're just going to add a shadow there. That's better. Around the base of the cup, just around the outside of it. I'm not going to go up over the top because there wouldn't be a shadow there per se. And then one last time, we're going to use our friend the blending tool and blend those two colors together, and that's going to give us a nice little shadow for our cup, so he's not just floating in outer space. It's going to help to ground the image. Blended a little too much. Going to come back in with that darker color and go back to the blending tool. We're going to make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Got that side done, and then we're going to come on the other side and just blend that out. Blend that dark blue and light blue together. Awesome. And then last but not least, it's time to sign our work. Nicely done. So now we've finished our wonderful drawing for the day. I hope you had a good time, and hopefully I'll see you again.